Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story: nurse ordered an unnecessary product and did not listen to me when I said about it. The second story: sergeant said to check all the tools so he wasn't getting home until 5 a.m. The third story: colleague wanted to make an order using me, but she didn't succeed. And the first story is: hospice nurse demands I bring exactly what she ordered. My job is a bit strange. I work for a company that provides equipment, beds, O2, wheelchairs, etc., to patients on hospice care. This can be one of 2 ways: 1 in-home with family, or 2 in an assisted living facility. This story involves the latter. I got an order today for an emergency O2 setup. This normally includes an O2 concentrator, think specialized air compressor, a couple of backup tanks, a tank cart and pouch, and all the tubes and equipment for those. I immediately noticed that this order is odd. First, on the order are 2 of our biggest O2 tanks outside of liquid O2, M60 for those in the medical and gas field. These are large 24-pound tanks of O2 that are reserved usually for high-liter flow patients, or those who live in excess of 2 hours from their nearest warehouse. While this on its own isn't odd, that fact that it was relatively close to my warehouse and the concentrator was only a 5-liter one had me questioning. On top of that, the order also had one of our smallest tanks, B tank, which are the kind you usually see people carrying in pouches while out walking. Third, there was a tank cart for a third size of tank, E tank, that is our standard but wasn't on this order. And finally, to top it all off, there were no regulators, which are devices that are needed to extract the O2 from the tanks in a controlled manner. And given the order, there should have been 2 different kinds, as M60s take a different regulator than E or B. Obviously, this order was wrong, and I wanted to make sure I was providing the correct equipment. I figured either the hospice company had a non-nurse input orders, pretty common, which resulted in accidentally getting M60 instead of E tanks. A standard O2 setup for our company is 2 E tanks and 1 B tank, with each concentrator in case of emergency or travel. Or they had forgotten to add the regulators and just added the cart out of reflex. I decided to call the hospice nurse, whose number was in the patient notes, and clarify what equipment was needed. Me: hi, this is OP with Health Company. I'm calling in regards to your order for patient. Nurse Karen: yes? With the nastiest tone you can imagine. Me, telling myself she's had a stressful day as healthcare is brutal. I have a few questions regarding the equipment ordered. Some of the equipment is incompatible and or missing. Nurse Karen: I know what I ordered. Just hurry up and bring it. Can't you see it's a stat order? Me: yes ma'am. I'm just trying to ensure that we're providing the correct equipment for the patient. Some of this equipment doesn't seem needed, and others are missing key parts. Nurse Karen: I'm a nurse, and you're just an effing delivery driver. You don't know what you're talking about. Do not question my decisions, and just bring what I effing ordered now. Me: right away, ma'am. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Now, I may not be a nurse, but I've been doing this a while. So I go ahead and load up the order. But I also load the regulators that might need, as well as the standard O2 tanks just in case. While I was down to maliciously comply, I didn't want to endanger a patient. I figured I'd let the facility staff know, give them the extra equipment, and let the hospice nurse suffer when the facility reported on her incompetence. I get there and screen into the facility, where I'm directed to the nurse's station for the patient's unit. I have all the equipment ordered by Nurse Karen on the cart, and I'm going to give her one more chance. When I get to the nurse's station, the facility nurses point me in the direction of the hospice nurse. I stop to talk to her, trying to show her the issue. She immediately shuts me down again and tells me to just do your effing job. She then tells me the room number and walks off. I get to the room and am surprised to see the regional supervisor for the hospice company, who I had met a few times before, as she liked to greet all the new patients when she was in the area. We got to talking, and this is how it went. Awesome manager: hey, OP, are you here to get patients set up? Me: yep, although there might be an issue with the order. I then wheel in the cart. Awesome manager: why do you have those tanks? The patient is on 2 liters, they don't need that. Me: I figured it was a mix-up and tried calling Nurse Karen to confirm, but she very rudely insisted that I bring this out exactly as she ordered it. She also didn't order any regulators. Awesome manager: what? What if the facility loses power or the concentrator goes down? Me: I tried explaining, but she just insisted to bring this. Don't worry though, I got extras in my truck. Do you want the normal O2 set up? Awesome manager. Yes, thank you. I'll be sure to look into Nurse Karen's conduct. I did my order, chatted with the facility staff and left. Didn't see Nurse Karen or Awesome Manager again. I thought that was the end, but it turns out that Awesome Manager called my boss while I was out doing the rest of my orders. Apparently, he wanted to thank me for knowing what I'm doing and letting him know. They started looking into Nurse Karen's other patients and found that she was constantly ordering incorrect equipment, and the other techs were just quietly correcting it for her. Easier than calling, honestly, and what I would have done if my day hadn't been so light. Awesome Manager told my boss that he had let Nurse Karen go, and she would no longer be an issue. Apparently, I had saved the hospice company thousands of dollars in potential malpractice and neglect lawsuits. The next story is, won't stand up for your subordinates? Enjoy going home late. This happened about 10 to 12 years ago. I was a corporal in the Marines at the time, MOS 6469 for the military types, aviation electronics repair tech for the non-military types. I worked night shift in a 3-shift shop, and myself and the sergeant, my direct superior, let's call him Sergeant K, were the quality assurance for the shift. Third shift also had a corporal and sergeant QA pair running their shift. Now, for those who don't know, tools are a big freaking deal in the aviation world. One lost tool or missing part of a tool can down an entire squadron, as it can cause serious damage to an aircraft. Even if no one dies or gets injured, no one wants to be the one to explain why a bunch of taxpayer money is down the drain. So your shop QA reps have to verify all the tools are accounted for every shift change, after every maintenance action, or even if the tech working needs to take a break to go to the bathroom. Well, on a night like any other, one of my techs broke a tool. We found every piece, wrote up the appropriate paperwork, and left a pass down for day crew to take care of it, as the head QA shop and tool shop didn't run a night crew. Since we found everything, not a huge deal. SH happens. Well, the third shift corporal comes in and we start taking stock of the tools. We were a fairly large shop, somewhere between 12 to 15 large toolboxes. Now, naval aviation maintenance is full of procedures that if performed by the book, they would take so long that no actual work would ever get done. This tool check was one such thing. Generally, we just made sure all the tools were where they were supposed to be, and every multi-piece tool had every piece. Usually took us 20 to 25 minutes max. We start the tool check. He notices the broken tool is not in its toolbox. I tell him I'll give him a full rundown once we're done and we continue on. By the time we finish, his sergeant, let's call him Sergeant D-Bag, as I never got along with him anyway, is there waiting with Sergeant K and the broken tool. Sergeant D-Bag, Corporal third shift, what's going on with this? Me, actually Sergeant, I was about to explain. Sergeant D-Bag, I wasn't effing asking you. Corporal third shift, I don't know, he hasn't. Sergeant D-Bag, do tool check again, by the book this time. I looked at Sergeant K. He and I usually got along well, and I knew he wasn't fond of Sergeant D-Bag either, but he just shrugged. I could tell this was going to be one of those leadership shows solidarity moments. All right then, game on. I walked away and told every tech from both shifts to stop what they were doing. No work would be done until tool check was completed. Also, go into our computer-based maintenance tracking system and put everything awaiting work. If production control called to ask, tell them that we can't work until tool check is done to the satisfaction of Sergeant D-Bag. We had items that aircraft could not fly without, so this was a big problem. Also, no one leaves until we're done, to make sure no one accidentally takes a tool home. We took every tool out, inspected each one for corrosion and damage, verified it was marked properly, and verified each multi-piece tool had all its parts, and each part was marked accordingly. By the book tool check. It took us 4 hours. Did I mention Sergeant K had an hour-long commute to get home? When we finally finished at about 4 a.m., I informed Sergeant K that was how I would do tool check from then on, including with day crew, which is when the staff sergeants and gunnery sergeant he reported to worked. He showed up for day crew before me the next few days, and did tool check himself, but for the week after I did the same exact thing with third shift every day. Both sergeants finally came to me on the last day. Sergeant D-Bag because he was tired of dealing with production control on his case, and Sergeant K because his wife was peeved he wasn't getting home until 5 a.m., and not so much apologized as said they wouldn't be bothering me about tool check anymore. Sergeant K and I got along great after that. Sergeant D-Bag got orders shortly thereafter to go to another base. Last I heard, he had been demoted back to corporal for something. Then got out and started his own business. The last story is... So, about all these purchase orders. So, the scene is this. It's 1990. I'm in college pursuing a computer science degree. For various personal reasons, I'm getting burned out and leave during my senior year and decide to get a job. It's probably worth noting that in many areas then, the demand for computer professionals was so high that a lot of places didn't care if there wasn't a degree. There was a massive shortage of people, so it didn't take me long to land a job. It was at a factory that made hydraulic equipment. There were about 50 office workers there, mostly engineers, accounting, HR, the dock office, plant management, and the various support staff for those positions. This is where almost all the computers were. It's probably useful to explain that there was no IT department. At all. I was the only IT person for the whole place. After I started there, it was explained to me that I wouldn't be getting a computer. WTF? The reason was this. At the time, it was a status symbol for managers to have a computer on their desks, and most of them never used it. Corporate wanted to encourage the managers to send those computers to their staffs, who would actually use them. But they didn't want to lose their symbols. So you'd have a manager with a computer and 4 or so people under him sharing one PC. Anyway, as there was no IT department, they put me in the accounting department, for lack of anywhere else. Now, while we weren't allowed to purchase new computers, we were allowed to repair broken ones, and that was part of my job. Failed hard or floppy drive or monitor or power supply or whatever. When I needed a part, I'd grab the latest issue of Computer Shopper. Tech people of my generation know it well, but for those who don't, it was basically a big magazine with ads for computers and computer parts. And it was enormous. Hundreds of pages every issue. So one day I'm in my office. Yes, I had an office with a desk, phone, door I could close, just no computer. And the payroll clerk walks in. We will call her Claudia. Claudia points to the magazine and asks if that's where I order the parts from. I said yes. She then asks if it would be possible to build a functioning computer from the various parts. I said sure, that's not a big deal. She then asks if any of the components cost more than $250. That immediately got my attention because of the company's purchase order policy. Basically, every manager had the power to authorize any single PO up to $250. Anything more had to go to the plant manager. I sensed she was up to something, but I answered honestly. No, none of them do. She asked me if I could make up a list for her of the parts that would be needed. Maybe she was cooking something up with our boss. Anyway, I said sure, and that afternoon I presented her with the list she was asking for, grouped so that no single purchase costs more than $250. The next day, the accounting manager calls me into his office. He has a stack of paper and says he needs to talk to me about them. I have no idea what he's talking about. I take a look. They're all POs. For the equipment I spec'd out, with my name as the requester. Claudia didn't put her name on it. She put mine on them and didn't tell me. The boss says, "What is this all about?" So look, if you're still reading this, if you take nothing away from this story, remember this. Never, ever, ever throw the payroll clerk under the bus. I successfully make my wisdom check and lean full into this fiction. I thought it'd be a good idea to have some spare parts on hand in case of a failure, so that I can fix it in hours instead of days. The boss looks at the paperwork. Motherboard, case, power supply, memory, monitor, hard drive, floppy drive. That's a lot of stuff. I tell him that if I have a wide selection of parts, I'll be ready for any eventuality. He says, "It seems to me that you could actually construct a new computer out of all of this." I say, "That's a really good idea. If I do that, I can verify that every part is functional before I need to use it in a repair." He scribbles something on the top PO and hands the stack back to me. I won't be approving this. You can go. I walk out of his office wondering if I got in trouble, until I glance at the stack. What he had scribbled was, "Nice try, Claudia." He was never fooled. Dropped the stack off on her desk as I went back to mine. A few months later, I got a better job at a place that decided its IT staff would be able to do a better job if they had access to a computer. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.